Hey everyone, Cal Cobra here, and look what came back. So now, last that I'd left off, I had the Legend, and it was a sample prototype unit. We were requested to ship those units back in late December as they necessitated a hardware upgrade and a software upgrade, and that made it the production unit once they were completed with that. Which is what we have now. And apparently, I've heard, I didn't hear this from Nokta, so I could be incorrect on that, and I generally try not to go off of rumor mills, but I think that was accurate that they had changed the display slightly, so that necessitated the hardware changes in there, which makes sense because they added some new functionality in here. And there's additional new functionality. Anybody that saw IFFY Signals video and the whole iron bias debacle, hey, you know what? That's great. We're getting another feature in there. The Equinox has the feature, certainly. So does a Deus, right? They have their silencer. Some other machines have that. Not all machines have that. But at any rate, it's one more feature for us, the users and consumers for this model. So I think that's great, right? That's one of the few companies that listens, and you know, they may not always agree with everything, but I think once they get enough user feedback and consumer feedback for features, if they make sense, sometimes with a little pushing, they make these features a reality, and that's great. I mean, it took MindLab, what, 2 years to come out with the upgraded iron bias setting in there. So at any rate, today, as you can see here, what we're planning to do is some testing. So I have a little test board set up here. I can kind of do some semi 3D testing, you know, and I know for me, testing, for me, this is mainly so I can get some practice on the machine. Tomorrow I'm going to be taking it out and doing some beach hunting. So there's a new beach setting in there. There's a salt sensitivity setting built in now, which is new. So that's great, right? They continue to improve the machine, and we continue to get new features in there. That's a feature that the Equinox does not have. So, and I'm starting to see some success using the FaroCheck out there. IFFY Signals had some nice video, and somebody else had a nice video, a beach video, the guys in Netherlands. Although oddly, the guys in Netherlands, I noticed, had the horseshoe on, which rejected the first 11 segments in the target ID. So I don't know why you would do that at the beach. I mean, you really want to listen to everything. Maybe the ground option under the horseshoe, which only rejects target IDs 1 and 2, which might be ground noise. But at any rate, we'll play with it tomorrow. I want to definitely test out some settings. I have some ideas on things to try out, and hopefully we can bring home a piece of gold. That would be sweet. I'll tell you what, this thing is really built well. I mean, this is it's a solid machine. It does make the Equinox feel like a toy. And I like the Equinox, don't get me wrong. I've had a lot of success with the Equinox, but build quality, I would say, is not one of its strengths. This feels very well built. It's got that ruggedized industrial, you know, kind of feel to it. So that's a welcome thing. You can see in the back here, it's got that slot. So they actually have an optional battery pack. I mean, you'd have to be going hardcore or maybe going camping out in the woods without a rechargeable power source, because it's pretty easy, I think, to get an easy, super full long day out of this, if not 2 days, right? It does depend a little bit on your settings. So at any rate, I'm gonna set this up in field mode, and I will use multi, and I will use full tones. And then we're gonna do some tests with some of these targets. Some of them are the same ones we tested before. When I had the prototype, and there was some question on some rings in there that didn't come in. So we're going to go ahead and change a few settings, and those will come in fine. I had the horseshoe mode set so that it blocked out, you know, that first, just like the guys in the Netherlands that did. They had the first 11 segments knocked out, and it just simply didn't hear those rings because they're steel. So anyway, we'll test those again, you guys can see. So without further ado, let me get some targets set up and we'll get started. All right, folks, I've got the Legend fired up. I did a noise cancel. It's definitely a little chattier than the prototype. I did read, I think it was IFFY Signals that said he reran the production unit through his test garden for depth, and he said it banged in on everything. There wasn't a signal that it couldn't hit, so I'm not going to be working on depth tests. As far as air tests, we'll see how that works out in the field. So anyway, I have this set up in field 2, full tones. I did a noise cancel, and I kind of tried to replicate the situation that IFFY presented with the down the barrel test. And I have a 3D kind of board set up here. I have a couple blocks and then the plank below it so I can add some depth. So this is a spike. You can see about 2 inches long, maybe going on 3 there. That I dug, right? It's old. It's early 18 to mid 1800s. And then there's a barber dime, and I'm able to replicate what IFFY saw. And I'm running it wide open, by the way, so nothing rejected whatsoever. Okay, so we know that this is something that IFFY brought up and was reported to Nokta, and they've added the iron bias feature. So once that feature is implemented, we will 100% retest this. People were saying, okay, you got to do the 90 or whatever. I know when I'm in the field, we're looking for, I'm a relic hunter primarily, we're looking for any conductor that makes a squeak. And then we'll usually do a 360 around it, scrape some dirt off, whatever, right? See if we can bring it up. This one, I don't know that this would not get my attention. Yeah, so as soon as that nail gets under your coil, it's game over. No problem. Okay. Yep, correct tone ID, correct target ID on the nail, on the coin. And as soon as it hits that nail, done. So, okay, interesting. So let's see how the iron bias feature solves that problem, which it sounds like it will. Okay, I'm gonna try a smaller nail. You can see that nail's pretty small compared to this, half the size, and much smaller in diameter. It's also an early to mid 1800s hand forged nail that was dug. So we'll try the same test. I'll remove the larger nail and just see how that works, because now I'm definitely curious. Most of the sites that we hunted do have a lot of iron. So, I know airborne tests are just one data point. There's nothing like testing it in the field. But certainly, we're in this kind of environment where there's a lot of nails. And these aren't on equal plane. I've got the barber dime is, an inch, a good inch lower. So I think that's pretty good, fair world, that you will see out there. So at any rate, let's swap the nails here and we'll retest. Okay, yeah, the smaller nail really didn't change the game here. Yeah, same exact thing. As soon as that nail leaves the coil, it can detect it with ease. So, okay. I will test the recovery speed real quick on this and just see if that factors into this, but it sounds like from this testing that IFFY did, it's more of an iron bias setting, which will have that ability to change, which should solve this, but I'm going to try the recovery speed. Okay, I tried a recovery speed. I tried 3 different ones just to try to sample a large range and then see if you could hone it in further. I tried 1, 5, and 10, and I saw no appreciable difference. So definitely an iron bias issue or setting. I don't want to call it an issue. The issue was that the setting was fixed, so if you ran into an issue like this, you didn't know what you were missing. But now that we have the ability to change it, just like you do on the Equinox, for these iron infested relic-y sites, this will be a welcome benefit. and feature for us out there. So we will retest that, and I will move forward and test some of the other targets that I tested in the last video. Okay, next test is this general service, probably mid-ish 1800s. Eagle button here at the back is an iron back. You can see it's rusted out. Generally, you don't find a lot of these in my experience. Most of them are brass backs, but you do see them. So at any rate, there it is. It's a small cuff button, and we're gonna see where it lands. Okay, 1920, that's good. Nice low conductor. Alright, here's a nice early 4-hole button. Some people call them underwear buttons, but they were used on shirts and other things as well. So, at any rate, let's test it, see where it comes. These are pretty common finds at relic sites, especially mid-1800s and earlier ones. Loves it. Coming in right at 37-ish. Okay, great. You're not going to miss that, that's for sure. Alright, this is a lead railroad seal, Southern Pacific something, that I dug at an old ghost town railroad depot type site in the middle of the desert. So anyway, let's test it. It's a nice lead low conductor, and we'll see how it responds on the legend. 17, 18. Okay, beautiful. Yep, those are fun to find. Certainly could also easily be a piece of gold. So, all right, next target. Okay, this button with this steel keeper attached to it, which originally would have been on like a placard. I guess it came as a set, and that's how they were attached. Very fancy. Any rate, the last time I did a video with this, it stirred a lot of controversy because it didn't come in very well. The last time I did the video, I had my horseshoe setting set to ferrous, which rejects out the first 11 elements. So it came in real cruddy. So let's try it now. Again, I'm running it wide open as I would if I was relic hunting. And we'll see how it comes in, and we'll test it at a couple different angles. So. Okay, so I would say this is another issue or challenge that may be resolved with the iron bias setting, but I think that's what we're seeing here. I mean, obviously this is probably not a real world scenario where you would find a button with a keeper attached, but there certainly could be another piece of iron or you know, junk next to it that's similar. So all right, we'll keep going here. Okay, this little ring in the last video with the prototype also stirred up some controversy, and I think it's the same thing, right? It's a steel ring, it's not silver, and I had the horseshoe invoked to block out the first set of target IDs in the ferrous setting. So I think this guy just simply wasn't getting picked up, but let's test it out. So we're wide open now, see how it sounds. Okay, so it's mostly getting it. It's a little choppy, but certainly if I heard that, I would slow down and investigate it. So before we were basically not hearing it most of the time. I think you just hear a little bit of the clipped high audio, or it would peek through what was being rejected, so it sounded really bad. So it's much better this time, but it's a little clipped, but you know, it's some kind of steel ring, so that's to be expected. Okay, next test target here is like a mid-1800s. You find these at Gold Rush and earlier sites, and a little bit into the Western period as well. But a little buckle here. They're fun to find. This one's got a little bit of decorative on it, but that's pretty representative of the kind of stuff you find at these sites. So anyway, let's see how it comes in. Loves it. Okay, doesn't matter. where you swing it, it loves that, which it should. It's a pure piece of brass. So, okay, next. All right, next up is a Doug V nickel. Right around 24-ish, 25. So, yep, it likes that, no problem there. All right, the next target is a token from a ghost town. So, I believe it's a cigar newsstand token. Wish it was a saloon, but it is what it is. At any rate, 6 1/4 cent brass token, very typical type of token you'd find in a ghost town, old park, etc. Let's see where she comes in. Yeah, loves that. So, as expected. So, all right, good. Okay, the last target here to test is a pretty poor condition Liberty seated dime. So, you can see it's got some environmental damage. It may have even been through a fire, although I think it's just the soil conditions. If I remember right where this one came from, it's cattle grazing and 100 some odd years of cow urine doesn't do silver coins well. So at any rate, let's test this guy. It's a US silver dime for those not from here. Loves it. 45, 46. Okay, terrific.